Hi, and welcome back to That's Entertainment, the weekly entertainment show where we look at all the interesting news from last week, this week. I recently attended the Berlinale Film Festival. It was a wonderful presentation, a lot of energy back in the market, which was great to see. I attended several conferences on the state of film funding. Common thread was trying to move away from the old days of just focusing purely on production. There's a lot of money coming back into the system. I think one of the key stats I heard from Film Vast was that there will be $2 billion that will be invested over the next few years just in the French market alone. So that gives you an indication of what will be going across the rest of Europe too. Everyone's very concentrated on regionalization, localization, understanding the diverse nature of Europe. But the other key thing that was dropping out of the conversations that we were having with people was this focus on the audience and actually trying to identify what people might be interested in seeing in the future. And I think this is something very hopeful for Groovy because we're working on a number of very interesting projects right now, including the Audience Project, which I'm sure you've heard about in the past. But if not, that's the database that we use to record all the media and campaigns that we run across the world, so we get a good idea of what the cost of buying an audience looks like, where they're located, how they interact with the campaigns from a genre perspective. And then there's also the Houston tool, which will be coming out later on this year, which is basically going to be media planning on steroids. So looking at that data and trying to predict where a film might end up from a box office perspective with a local release. So we're looking forward to these conversations as and when they come. And if you want to look through some of the events that I attended, please just look at my Twitter. I've logged the presentations as minute notes as I was sitting in those events. And there were some quite interesting insights, particularly from Ampere Analysis and also from the Film Vast team in Sweden. This week, we're looking at the great success of DreamWorks and Universal's Puss in Boots, The Last Wish, the animated tale from the Shrek universe, and what that shows us about how film distribution models are changing. As of February 20th, Puss in Boots has taken in over $420 million globally and is still on the theatrical release in various territories. $166 million of that total has come from the North American market, while the rest has come from the international box office. In addition to this box office success, the film has also gone down very well with both critics and cinema goers, with a 95% certified fresh rating from Rotten Tomatoes and a 94% audience score. One thing to note about the film's release is that it didn't open a day and date globally. Instead, it opened in select European and other international territories from early December, ahead of its US theatrical debut on the 21st. It delivered a disappointing opening weekend initially at only $12.4 million and came in second behind Avatar: The Way of Water. However, the 94% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes helps explain why the film has gone on to have such a successful and lengthy theatrical run. It has benefited from a great word of mouth from cinema goers. In North America, it has overtaken the $149 million of the first Puss in Boots movie back in 2011, and despite that early film opening to almost 3 times as much on its opening weekend. What's also interesting to note is that the film did not go directly from the cinemas to Universal's subscription streaming platform, Peacock. Instead, it was given a premium VOD rental release during the first week of January, just 2 short weeks after its poor cinematic opening. The film consequently topped the iTunes, Google Play, and Vudu charts, and at the same time, piracy tracking site Muso reported a huge spike in demand for the perfect quality illegal digital rips of the film. But what has proven to be great news for cinemas is that family audiences have continued to choose to see the film on the big screen, even when it was available to rent in some territories, and even though it had found itself into various pirate and streaming and torrenting sites around the world. For example, in the US, even though there was a dip in cinema admissions the weekend after the film's VOD release, it has nevertheless remained in the top 3 at the North American box office throughout the middle of February. And in the UK, the film has now taken over $20 million despite its release being put back to February. So it wouldn't have to be in competition with the UK-only theatrical release of the Roald Dahl's Matilda the Musical had it opened in December. Universal have just announced the next step in their overall release strategy for the film there, where its digital rental release will be followed by a digital retail release with the film available to buy online from the 21st of February. 1 week prior to it also being made available on 4K Ultra, Blu-ray and DVD. While physical sales have been in decline for the years and digital rental and retail revenues are dwarfed by the money studios make from subscription streaming platforms, it is interesting to see that Universal are following the traditional sequence of a theatrical release, followed by a rental release and a subsequent retail release before finally making the film available on its own streaming service. And this is the model that some other studios have successfully returned to post-COVID. It delivered phenomenal results for Paramount's Top Gun Maverick, and the relatively lengthy delay in the film arriving at Paramount Plus had little negative impact on its appeal to subscribers. According to the studio, Top Gun became the most watched movie globally on the platform in its opening weekend, when it debuted back in December. This is a very different model to the one that's been followed by Disney, the traditional leader in the animated film sector. During the pandemic and beyond, the studio debuted a number of Pixar titles on Disney+, and over the last 2 Christmases, their then latest Disney titles included Encanto and Strange World, and both of those went straight from cinemas to the SVOD platform in a matter of weeks. The appeal of such films no doubt helped the streaming platform succeed in growing its very impressive subscriber base. But with Disney Plus having seen its first quarter drop in numbers and a general acknowledgement that streaming success now needs to be judged in terms of revenue rather than subscriber numbers, might we see Disney return to a similar model to Universal's Puss in Boots strategy, as reported by Variety? The company, in trying to grow Disney Plus, rapidly placed too much emphasis on acquiring customers rather than profitability. CEO Bob Iger suggested, "We were, as a company, in a global arms race for subscribers. And in our zeal to go after subscribers, I think we might have gotten a bit too aggressive in terms of our promotion." And we're going to take a look at that. I took the kids down to go and see Puss in Boots, and I got to say, fantastic movie. And I think it just goes back to the fact that if we can just stick to telling great stories, the films will promote themselves. And if you haven't checked it out yet, go and see it. It's a fantastic film. That's all for this week.